من بيروت لديترويت بشمال الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية. موجود اليوم لقابل أحد أهم السي اوز بصناعة السيارات، السيد كارلوس غوسن. خلينا نكتشف عن قريب أكثر عن هالرجل العظيم. Mr. Carlos Ghosn, thank you for giving us some of your time here in Detroit at the Motor Show. And we would like to first say that you are Brazilian, French, Lebanese businessman, and you were born on the 9th of March 1954 in Brazil. Then at the age of 6, you went back to Lebanon for some time and you studied at the Collège Notre Dame de Jamhour. Tell us more about your childhood.
Oh, I mean, you're embarking on a subject which can be extremely long. And I'm going to try to be very short. Okay. I'm going to try to be very short. Yeah. I mean, what I remember from my childhood, obviously, Brazil first. Yeah. Very little memory, but Brazil has been important because I was born in Brazil. And I spent my first years in a region which at that moment was not very developed in Brazil. It was a state which is today called the state of Rondônia, which is one of the states which is booming in Brazil, yeah. With a lot of investments in terms of infrastructure. But at that time, it was really a place where only pioneers, and obviously the Lebanese migrants, yeah. used to go in places where pioneers were needed to do the job that nobody wanted to do, and particularly to undertake and develop companies that people were a little bit afraid to do. Usually people in Brazil, when they develop a business and they become successful, they go on the coast. And only the people who are looking to develop a future goes internally. So Rondônia, Porto Velho are important place for me because they are linked to my first childhood. Then you have all the years in Lebanon which correspond with school, 6 to 16, all in Collège Notre Dame de Jamhour, as you mentioned it. Very important years because, when your school has a lot of influence on you, and particularly when it's a Jesuit school, yeah. where, as you know, you're very involved in the school, you spend a lot of hours, yeah. You're learning discipline, you're learning to be competitive, you're learning the sense of excellence about when you do things, you have to do it fully, you have to be fully engaged into it, and so these years have been extremely influential on. This is
what made also a successful man out of you, and especially that I've read somewhere that you said that the Jesuit father taught you about listening to others before you talk, yeah. and not judging people before yeah. understanding their background.
Yeah, well, you have a lot of lessons. Everybody has a lot of lessons taken from his years of school. But I think what's the most important things you learn at school is not so much the content. Obviously, you need how to count and how to talk and grammar and rules, etc. But the most important things is you learn how to learn. It's going to be very important. Yeah. And second, you learn discipline, how to be organized, yeah. how to be on time, and discipline. These are the most important elements. That's what makes the difference for the future. Did you learn how to learn? Because you're going to be spending time learning after. Not only at the university, but even when you start to work, particularly when you start to work, you need to continue to learn how to learn. And the second one is, the discipline. As you know, it's a very famous, sentence which, in a very famous book saying, with a little bit of discipline, you do a little. With a lot of discipline, you do a lot. And with total discipline, nothing resists you. And this is so true. And particularly when you're going in business and the industry, learning how to be disciplined in a smart way, obviously, extremely important. And this starts from the school.
Indeed. And we know that also you went to Paris to École Polytechnique, and you studied, and your first work was there at Michelin. Tell us more about the French society and your first steps into your business.
Well, this was another important, period in life. You leave Lebanon at 16 years old which by the way is very tough to leave Lebanon. I mean,
you were attached to.
Yeah, but you know, I was attached to, but at the same time, I'm thinking about all the young people today who have to leave Lebanon. It's not easy, you know. Yes, obviously they are carried by their dreams and they want to make a future, and they know there is not so much possibility to develop a career and a decent life in Lebanon, so most of them leave. But it's hard, particularly when you're young. I left Lebanon, I was 16 years old, I left my friends, I left my school, I left a lot of people. I was attached, okay? But you know there is no way back. You know you have to leave in order to build the future. My grandfather, who migrated from Lebanon to Brazil, left, but he was 13. Obviously, when I left Lebanon, I was in a much better condition because I knew how to read, I knew how to count, I mastered 3 languages, and I was going to go for engineering school in France. He left, he didn't know how to count, he didn't know how to read, he had no money, had nothing, and he was going into a country he didn't even know.
So you love an adventure like your grandpa?
I mean, no, it helps you measure the fact that no matter how hard what you have to do, somebody has done something harder than you.
Yeah.
So
it's helps like a lesson.
Yeah, it helps you to put it in relative terms. France has been a great and very important experience for me because it toughens me. You know, it's a tough country. You know, moving from a Mediterranean country to Paris, you go from warm to cold. You go from soft to hard. I mean, it's a tough experience, but at the same time, it's a very beneficial one because you're getting prepared for the real life. Student schools are obviously always very interesting. You know, went through preparatory schools in France. I went to École Polytechnique. I went to l'École des Mines after it. Yeah. And these years have been magnificent because these are years where you're learning, you're developing, you're meeting a lot of people. Paris is a very cosmopolitan city. Yes, also, indeed. You meet people from all countries in the world. And then, you know, when time came to start a career, I went to Michelin for 2 reasons. First, Michelin has a big project in Brazil, and I wanted to start my career in Brazil. I wanted to go back to Brazil. I want to go back to Rio de Janeiro. And this is where the project of Michelin was. That was number 1. And second, Michelin is connected to the car industry, and I love cars. So by going to Michelin, I was marrying 2 things. I liked the ultimate product, which is the car, and for me, the possibility to go back to Brazil and work in Rio de Janeiro was very attractive. Yeah,
and we know that also besides being a boss and a CEO, you have a passion for car racing, is it?
No, I like the product. Obviously, I like all the aspects of the product. I like cars. I've been liking cars since I was a kid. You know, in our generation, a lot of people like cars because, frankly, we didn't have so much other products to like. Yeah. You know, now young people have so many other things. Yeah. But in our times, you didn't have too many things. So car was a very important product. You didn't have so much competition. Yeah. I like cars. So being connected with cars and being able to drive a lot of them, being exposed to many brands, seeing the difference between European cars, Japanese cars, American cars was for me fascinating. And working at the supplier, which was Michelin, expose you to all the brands and expose you to different ways of working. Yeah. I've seen, working through many years in Michelin, that the Japanese are different from the German. Obviously, they are different, but the way they work, the way they engineer their product is very different from what the German do, very different from what the French do, and very different from the American. And I was able to compare the different processes. And I've seen also the difference between companies coming from the same country. You know, I remember very well seeing the Nissan approach compared to the Toyota approach or to the Honda approach, even though they were all Japanese, but each one of them has a different approach and a different process. And I was able to say, well, this is better than that, you know? Yeah. It's very easy to see when you are from outside.
Then in 1996, you moved to Renault. And you had like 3 different jobs at Renault, and again in 1999 you moved to also Nissan, and then they had the joint venture together. What made you leave Michelin to Renault and also not leave but stay with Renault and then also work with Nissan?
Well, first as you know, I started my career in Michelin in France. Then I went to Brazil, and then I went to the United States.
Yeah.
Great years, a lot of experience, learned a lot. And Michelin is a family, it's a kind of a family company, because the CEO of Michelin was François Michelin, who is in fact was the main representative of the family. I spent a lot of time with Michelin since I started to work in 1978. Started in 1978, and then I stayed until 1996, so 18 years. And with 18 years, a lot of travels, a lot of learning, and particularly, obviously, you're always influenced by the CEO of the company, because you're observing what he's doing, you're observing the strategy, you're observing the operational decision, the arbitrage, and you're learning not only from the things he does well, but particularly for the things he doesn't do well, in your opinion. So you say, no, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to repeat that. So you're learning, you're learning all the time. So 1996, I left Michelin for a very simple reason. I knew I was in a family business, and then if you're in a family business, the top job is always going to be probably reserved for people
from the family,
from the family, or people which main attribute is the link to the family at that time. So I was contacted by a headhunter who told me about the potential to join Renault as an executive vice president, and with the possibility to one day succeed the CEO. Nothing guaranteed, but this was open. So it's a car manufacturer, attracted to cars.
Yeah.
Second, you can go for a top job, which, by the way, you say when, you know, in 1996, I was 42 years old. At 42 years old, you cannot say my career is finished. I mean, I'm the number 2 or number 3 guy of a company. I never can go for the top. It was very difficult to accept at 42. You may accept it at 60, but not at 42. So I went for Renault, yes, in 1996. But I didn't stay a long time, as you know, because the opportunity of Nissan came immediately after, and I moved to Japan in 1999.
Yeah, that's it. And we know when you joined Nissan, they were like really having problems and a debt of like 2 billion, 2.7 billion.
It was very bad.
It was very bad, and then you did it. You were the guy behind, really. They call you, between brackets, the low-cost killer around the world.
Yeah, not the Japanese. The Japanese don't call me low-cost killer.
Yeah,
low-cost killer came from the French press.
Indeed.
From the French press and the American press, by the way. When I left France to go to Japan, they put the low-cost killer as an attribute, because during my years at Renault, I have engaged into a plan to really streamline Renault, which was pretty heavy, and which was, by the way, which was very successful. So they started with the low cost killer. Japanese never, even at the beginning, referred to me as low cost killer.
Yeah.
They gave me much more nicknames.
I know.
Much more nicknames after. None of them is low cost killer.
Yeah, indeed. كارلوس غصن اللي ولد بالبرازيل وتربى ببيروت، وأيضاً سافر على باريس وتعلم وبدأ مسيرته المهنية بميشلان وبعدين برونو وأخيراً بنيسان. تعرفنا عليه أكثر وعلى مسيرته المهنية، ولكن خليكن معنا لأنه بعد في أمور كتير جديدة تكتشفوها. I know that you are worshipped in Japan because they think you are one of the rare CEOs who's not Japanese and who worked so hard for a Japanese car company and who did such great work. And they even did some comics, the manga about you.
Yeah.
There was also many books written about you and your all your strategies and all the steps away. And you wrote a book also about Nissan.
Yeah.
Tell us more about what happened in Japan and why the manga comics.
Let me tell you, 1999, there was discussion between Renault and Nissan, and there was discussion between Nissan and Daimler. And Nissan was in a very bad shape. Not only because of the financial situation is always a consequence of something. I mean, you're not in bad shape because your finances are a mess. Because you are in a bad shape, then your finance is a mess. So the finance mess is a consequence of something bigger that you need to fix. It's always the same. So Nissan was in a terrible situation in 1999, $20 billion of debt, and the banks didn't want to give you any more loans. Company has been declining for 10 years, and people were really very frustrated inside the company because they were seeing Toyota and Honda doing very well, and Toyota and Honda are brothers. I mean, they're same engineers, same country, same culture. So why two companies doing very well and the third one doing so badly? Particularly that people were working hard inside Nissan. A lot of frustration, financial situation very bad. Company was stuck. The lines with Daimler didn't go. Didn't go for, at that moment, for a very simple reason. Jürgen Schrempp was the CEO of Daimler, and Jürgen Schrempp has created the lines between Daimler and Chrysler, and I think the team came to the conclusion that adding Nissan was too much. So they just said it's not going to go. So Renault, it offered a huge opportunity for Renault, and I remember very well at that moment the Japanese said, you know, we want this guy to come to help us. You know, after a few months of discussion, they said, well, no, this is the guy we want. And Louis Schweitzer, who was the CEO of Renault, came to me and said, you know what, if you have to go to Japan, because if you don't go to Japan, I will not make the deal. So it was a lot of pressure on me, but I accepted gladly because for me, you know, I'm a car fan. I'm a multicultural person.
Yeah, indeed.
So for me, Japan was a new discovery. It's a new country. I didn't know anything about Japan. I didn't speak the language, but I was fascinated by the industry in Japan. And for me, it was a new adventure, and the ability to make a big change eventually and contribute to something big. I was absolutely not sure it would be success, but I thought this is your opportunity to make a big change. This is your opportunity to make a big change with 50% of chance of being successful of failing. So I went in 1999 to Japan, and at the beginning, I just want to remind you, the Japanese was very skeptical
about you because you're not Japanese.
The Japanese press was extremely skeptical, if not even negative, by saying, what this guy's going to do to us. Okay, I mean, this company has been stuck for 10 years. 3 turnaround plans have been tried in Nissan. None was successful. So how this guy who is Brazilian, Lebanese, French, coming from a small European car maker is going to come to Japan? Let's not forget this was the temple of the car industry, and save a company that Japanese could not save. So this was the beginning. So a lot of hammering from the press, a lot of negative articles from the beginning. Fortunately for me, I didn't understand Japanese, I didn't speak Japanese, so I could not understand all the criticism.
It's better for you.
So it saved me. In a certain way, I was just doing my job and engaged into the revival plan of Nissan. But then the Japanese started to see that what you were saying you were doing, and you were completely committed, completely engaged,
to the work.
you know, hardworking, and the results start to come. And Japanese people are very pragmatic people that judge you not on you know, theory, or they judge you on facts and on performance. And then I start to see that, you know, you're making changes that before you were not possible or were not successful, then start to turn.
And that's why you said, if in 1 year I don't succeed, I will leave.
It was very important. This was very important because You were not coming by saying, you know, guys, I'm coming here, I'm going to try a plan. If it doesn't work, we'll try the second one. No, you're saying one plan, that's it.
Yeah.
Successful, I stay. If not successful, I leave, and with me all the members of the executive committee. It struck a chord with the Japanese. You know, Japanese understand what's commitment. It's in their history.
As I said, you are today one of the greatest CEOs in the car industry, if not the greatest. Why? Is it because you are a hard worker? Is it because you work? They call you the 7-Eleven because you work from 7 o'clock in the morning till 11. Because it's about your talent, your intelligence, your vision. We would love to know what is your secret.
Look, I don't know if there are secrets, and probably I'm not the best person to analyze why. I mean, you can analyze it better than me. But, you know, let me tell you, if I can summarize it, I would say that, you know, I'm obviously doing things, I'm different. That's why people look, I'm different. I'm different from the other CEOs.
Yes, you are.
And I'm different from the other car makers. And because I have attributes that none of them have. Okay, let me tell you, some of them I have no merit. I've just inherited these attributes. And some of them I've done. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
I'm the only CEO of the car industry who has been born and raised and educated in a developing country. I'm the only one. I was born in Brazil, educated in Lebanon. I went to a developed country, I was 16 years old. So I have seen, I've been nurtured with the culture of a developing country. And it's very important because you see all the other Japanese CEOs, American CEOs, European CEOs, they are all coming from developed countries. I'm the only guy, boy from the BRICS. You know, I'm a boy from the BRICS, born in Brazil, educated in Lebanon, which is Arab country. You know, the Middle East is considered as one of the developing countries. That's number one. Number two, I do things which are very different. I'm heading two companies, and the two companies are linked by an alliance. And I promoted a cooperation with Daimler, and I promoted a cooperation with Mitsubishi, and all of them are working. And you know, in our industry, a lot of cooperation have failed.
Of course.
So you're the boy from the BRICS, then you're doing alliances and cooperation which are working, and it's very hard. Third, obviously the most important thing is that I have changed Nissan. It's not a turnaround. Turnaround usually, you know, you have a company like Chrysler has been turned around 3 or 4 times. So companies turn around, goes up, then after a few years go down. This is what people are looking for: sustainability. You turn around the company, stay there.
Yeah.
You are putting it on a path of growth, path of profitability, it stay there. Mm-hmm. And one of my biggest achievement, and nobody can take it from me, is that I have revived Nissan. Not alone, with the people of Nissan, but I've done it.
Of course.
Okay, so obviously you get a lot of merit. Particularly, you've done it in a country which is not yours. Usually, you have an American CEO reviving an American company, or you have a European CEO reviving, but nobody has revived a Japanese company being non-Japanese. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is not seen. So one of the reasons for which I have a particular status is because I'm different. And it was a real revival because, as you know, Nissan 1999 was in really bad shape.
Yeah.
And Nissan have been performing very well for 13 years. So it's not a kind of coup de chance, or and the guy was lucky, the market was favorable.
It's a long-term thing.
No, on 13 years, it's not luck. On 13 years, you've done something, you've hit some chords to make some fundamental change for the company in a very competitive, very competitive market. Yeah. So these are some of the things which makes you different.
Of course, and that's why I think a lot of books were written about you, and I want to talk about the book you have written about Nissan, and it was a bestseller.
Yeah.
Tell us more about it. Why did you wanted to share all these information and techniques?
Well, I've written Renaissance, which was written in Japanese, and which has been very successful. It was a business book.
Yeah. Indeed.
And usually it sold more than 300,000 copies, which for a business book, it's a huge success.
Of course.
At the same time that I was doing this, an editor came and said, we want to do a cartoon about you, a kind of manga about you. I was very reluctant at the beginning, but my people of about communication say, look, manga is very popular here, you have to accept. But they've done it. I didn't do it. They've written the story about the manga, about the manga, and it was, you know, very fun.
Yeah,
very good.
It's
I didn't have any input there. We just corrected some things which were not accurate. But the manga was a much bigger success than my book. So in a certain way, it makes me very humble about, you know, you're spending hours talking about management transformation of a company, and somebody else comes. Make it
so you're
a
not
cartoon.
Thinking,
a cartoon. They sold more than 1 million.
Yeah,
you know,
I know
1 million of these cartoons. So just to make it make you more humble. There is an English book about how to learn English with Carlos Ghosn. I didn't do it, but somebody did it. You have a bento box, which is the food. You know, I've been elected the father of the year.
And a legend. And in Japan, you are like really worshipped, and in Lebanon, you are our pride.
Oh yeah, thank you. You're very generous with me. But what I'm saying is, I love Japan. It shows. I've contributed to Japan society in a modest way by reviving a company which is an important company in Japan. And frankly, I think probably people in Japan feel the fact that you like Japan, and you're doing it not because only you have a big salary and you're paid to do
because
that,
you're passionate.
but because you like it. Because you like it to be there. And particularly also because in the relationship between Renault and Nissan, in this alliance, Japanese are feeling good about this alliance. They are feeling that they are being treated fairly.
I know you are very keen on environment, and though you are into car business, but you are the first one to launch the electrical car. So and everybody thought you were crazy. Why did you do it?
When you innovate, you always look like
different.
You look odd. You look odd when you want to innovate. You innovate with a new technology, you innovate with a new product, you innovate in a new management way. People say, what is this? It's not going to work, which is normal. Why the environment? Because I think the industry is unsustainable without breakthrough technology for the environment. You know, in the year 2000, about 50 million cars were sold in the world. In 2012, about 80 million. And before 2020, we're going to be around 100 million cars. The car park, the number of cars being driven every day on the planet today is about 1 billion. It's going to move to 2.5 billion within the next 15 years. So you can imagine the problem. If today we have problems of emission and global warming and climate change, you can imagine what this is going to become in the next 15 years. And it's not going to stop, because it's not going to be the United States or Europe or Japan who are going to increase the car park. It's not. It's going to be the emerging market, and nobody's going to stop the emerging market from having this car. Nobody's going to stop the Chinese or the Brazilian or the Russian or the Indian to buy a car, because this is the first thing that they want to buy. So we have a problem to solve. We're part of the problem as acting on transportation. We have to be part of the solution. So I engage into the zero emission car with the electric car by developing the technology and by putting mass marketable electric cars on the market. So obviously your competitors are all over you, which is normal, but I really fundamentally believe not only it is the right thing to do, but it's a good product, and ultimately it's going to be a very rewarding product for both Renault and Nissan. So I'm doing it out of good strategy, good technology, but also a belief that this is the right thing to do in order to allow the good development of autonomous transportation. Car is an autonomous transportation globally.
كارلوس غصن المبدع، كارلوس غصن الرجل الناجح الطموح، هل عنده وقت انه يشوف اولاده؟ هل عنده وقت انه يمارس هواياته؟ خلينا نكتشف اكثر من بعد البريك. We are at Nissan Engineering Laboratories, and we know you are often here, looking at every detail. So you're the man behind every car.
No, I don't micromanage usually the operation at this level. You know, some cars, yes, I follow in detail what's going on. Other cars, I delegate to the people who are in charge. This is an engineering center in the United States, and what you see behind us is a kind of lab. This is where people assemble parts, they do modules, they assemble cars, they try to follow and make an object out of the idea of the engineers, which are here. Yes, I like often to go and walk around and try to check about what people are developing for the future.
Of course, and you have numerous laboratories all around the world.
Many of them. This is one of them, which is in North America. We have a lot of them in Japan. But in every region in the world, we have usually a technical center where you have labs like this.
Yeah. I would love to ask you about your new projects in Lebanon. We know now you love your land and vineyards. We know you are a part of Ecrire. So what made you decide to go back to Lebanon?
Well, you know, first, obviously, my connection to Lebanon is a very intimate connection. I've never really cut my ties with the country, even though I left the country when I was 16 years old. I keep a lot of friends over there. I have a lot of people who are related to me. You know, in Lebanon you have a lot of cousins and a lot of parents around it. And at a certain point in time, within the normal diversification that you do within your own assets and within your own belonging, I wanted to do something completely different from what I'm doing. Obviously, the car industry is an industry of metal and the industry of rubber and an industry of technology. I wanted to go something which is much more basic, much more linked to the earth, to the ground, something which also where you can provide employment, particularly that in the case of Lebanon, it is something which is needed. So that's why I came very quickly to the wine. And you know that Lebanon has a long history in wine. You know, winery has existed in Lebanon for 3,000 years, with up and downs. It used to be one of the main reservoir of wine for the Roman empires. And a lot of the specialists in wine say that the conditions in Lebanon in terms of climate, temperature, water, soil are to do some of the best wines that you can do on earth. So I was very intrigued, and fortunately for me, I found people who are knowledgeable and that we could trust to do that. So that's the way it started. It was out of taste for the product. I like wines. Second, you know, connection with Lebanon. And third, trying to do something which is useful for society, where you can employ the land, employ the people, and do something that people can be proud of, because you know a wine of a good quality is something people relate to and they can be very proud of.
Of course. And do you have future projects in Lebanon, especially that we know you're non-Japanese and you made a success out of a Japanese car company. You're Lebanese. Can you do something for Lebanon? I mean, do you think about future projects or making successful stories in Lebanon?
Yeah, I think yes, there are a lot of other projects, but frankly not at the level of industry like the car industry, but projects which are more at the level of the country, related to products which are you know, naturally products coming out of Lebanon, like the wines, in Lebanon. There are a lot of ideas, but unfortunately the problem is the time that you can dedicate to develop these ideas, the time that you can dedicate to find partners who can work on these ideas. Because you know, when you have a job like mine, the most precious asset you have is time.
Of course.
And time is very limited.
Precious,
and this kind of project required a lot of involvement, a lot of engagement, a lot of discussion, even though you don't do yourself, but you need to dedicate enough time and attention to make sure that you have the right partners, that you're doing the right moves. And this is something which is completely natural. Wine from Lebanon makes a lot of sense. It doesn't look odd for anybody. That's why you need to think about what would be next step. For example, you know, food out of Lebanon or products which are natural products like olive oil, things like this would be totally natural for a country and would be in the same follow-up, you know, using the land, employing people, and doing a good quality work and product that people working in it or owning it would be very proud of.
Yeah, though you are a very innovative person and sky is your limits. Don't you think maybe we have to innovate in Lebanon, new projects, maybe thinking about something else than only the products of land and earth and soil?
Yeah, well, you know, I think, yes, there are unlimited possibilities in Lebanon. Some of it are related more to the earth and to the land, other more linked to the other important resource that Lebanon have, which is people, which mean all activities which are activities requiring people, creativity, engineering, consulting. That means Lebanon would be a remarkable place to do it. For this, there is a minimum requirement, and the minimum requirement are all linked to the existence of a basic infrastructure. Infrastructure being, electricity, communication, transportation, safety. These are the things that, in my opinion, would favor a lot, not the development, but the explosion of projects where, you're using people mind and people creativity to create or develop services or to develop product that would be totally in line with the Lebanese, I would say, creativity and the Lebanese mindset.
Yeah, you are an example of a lot of young people all around the world. And you are an example for the new generation in Lebanon. So what is your message to all these talented Lebanese who are really traveling out of the country to find opportunities around the world and leaving their country?
Well, the first thing is, obviously, I think people need to know that there is no limit. That means when you're educated and you live in an environment, you have the impression that you have limits around you. But they're not. That means these limits, one day or the other, they will be eliminated, they will be overcome. They can be eliminated, they can be overcome. So the first message would be that every Lebanese can develop in himself a kind of project or plan or dream or wish that they think legitimately they can pursue or they can develop, and then not to be limited by the perceived constraint that they are seeing around them. Most of the people I know who are Lebanese or even non-Lebanese and who have been the most successful are the people. They're not the smartest one. They're not the people with the biggest imagination or the biggest creativity or the biggest talent. No, they were the people who, even though they had some basic talent and basic gifts and basic idea and basic creativity, they were the people who did not care so much about the obstacles they were seeing in front of them. They were ready, to climb the walls and eliminate the obstacles and go beyond the perceived limits in order to realize them. So the most important message is, whenever you have built an image about what you want and where you think where you can contribute, do not be limited by what you see around you. And this is particularly valuable for young Lebanese people who often look around them and they can be terrified by the limitation that they are seeing. Yes, there are limitations, but at the same time, these limitations are here to be overcome.
You're right. مثل ما اكتشفنا بالنورث أمريكان موتور شو هون بديترويت إنه كارلوس غصن من سنة 1999 كرس كل مسيرته المهنية لشركة نيسان ونجح. واليوم نحن قدام مبنى نيسان Engineering Laboratories رح نكتشف أكثر عن شخصية كارلوس غصن. So talking about new generation, you have kids. So you're a father. How do you perceive the future of your children, and do you assist them?
Well, you know, oh yeah, I'm very involved. I'm not a micromanager father. I'm not at all. That means I leave their own space. I leave them. My kids are now adults. That means the youngest one is 18. The oldest one is 26. They all live in the United States because they have decided to live in the United States. Two of them are professional. Other two are still studying. You know, I perceive the role of the father as being the coach. You know, it's like a coach. It's not mandatory. You go see your coach whenever you need him. Obviously, the coach from time to time intervene because he say, hey, you're off limit, or you're not pushing yourself hard enough, or you're not doing what you could be doing. And this relationship is very rewarding. They're very rewarding for the father because, you know, when they are older, you still have and you still have a kind of contribution to bring and a value added. But for the kids also, it's very valuable because from time to time they need your advice, and they need advice from somebody who has a very long experience of life, whatever this experience is, a professional one or a personal one.
Yeah, you were talking about time and how precious is time to you. Do you work from 7 till 11? Do you have time to consecrate for your hobbies, to have fun, to see your kids?
It's very important. I mean, when you work hard, and you are totally involved in your work, but at the same time, preserving time for your hobby, for the people you care for in your life is also extremely important. Now, when you're very busy professionally, you cannot have a lot of time available, so the quantity of time is limited. But you can compensate it with the quality of time, which means that when you are with people, you're 100% with them, you're not 50%. When I'm with my kids, I don't go to the computer and look to my mail or read the newspaper or receive a phone call. I try not to do that. So you can compensate the lack of quantity by a good quality, complete availability. That's number one. Number one, very important. But hobbies and time with the people you care for, extremely important, so you can regenerate your own energy for your job or for your work or for your professional activities. If you don't do that, well, in a certain way, you're going to end up being dry. You know, you lack creativity, you lack engagement, you lack motivation, because like anybody else, human beings need to be resourced. And one way of resourcing is obviously being surrounded by the love of the people you care for, and at the same time, you know, being able to do things that are just fun. That means just completely free. That's fun. That you just do them not because you have to do them, but because you really want to do them.
Is there any crazy thing you would love to do and you didn't have time to do, or is it only some work, some projects that you want to finalize, or do you have like things?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. But I mean, maybe it will happen in the future. But for the moment, no, I don't think that there is anything that I really would like to do that I don't have the time. That I don't have. I always manage to do somewhat things that I would like to do, or to be patient enough in order to find the moment where you can develop them.
And you don't regret anything if you had to come back in the past?
No.
Are there things you would?
No,
really
I don't spend too much time standing, looking at the past. I mean, obviously the past is very important, but particularly in view of the future. For example, from time to time, you discover that things are not going well, or you're not getting the results you want, or you consider that you've done a mistake. You don't dwell on them by saying, well, I regret it. No, it doesn't worth nothing. Your regrets don't worth nothing. But what's important is look at them by saying, okay, what do I learn? What did I learn from it? Where did I make a mistake? Why did I do a mistake? How can I avoid repeating it? This is what analyzing the past is important. It's just to make sure that you are avoiding the traps for the future. But analyzing the past to regret doesn't make any sense, and frankly, I don't do it.
Yeah, and you are a man that is 100% satisfied.
No, I'm not saying. No. You have to be careful. It's not a question of I'm saying, oh, everything I've done is perfect.
Yes.
Not at all, not at all.
Okay.
On the contrary, I think there is a lot of things you can learn from the fact that you had some results which are disappointing, or from time to time you're not fully satisfied with what you've done. You try to understand why in order to correct for the future. So it's not a kind of self-satisfaction, you know, I'm happy with everything I've done, not at all. But I think regretting
won't lead to anything.
And it's kind of mindset which is a little bit against the mindset of building something for the future. When you are engaged into what you're doing, what you want is take every single opportunity to make sure that the next steps are going to be better.
Yeah.
For that, you look at the past, not so much to regret.
Let us look into the future. And how do you foresee Nissan in 2030?
Well, you know, I think the company 2030. Obviously, this is something where you can. It's an easy exercise because nobody anyway will be here to just contradict you to say no, this didn't happen. But I think it's going to be a much larger company. It's going to be a company with presence all over the globe, present in all the segments of the market, probably with a lot of new activities developed, not only new technology, new products, but even new activities developed. And I think it will be a truly global company. That means the people working in Nissan will be of different culture, different horizons, which is already the case. It's one of the most global company today compared to other car manufacturer. But I think this is gonna accelerate.
And how do you foresee Carlos Ghosn in 2030?
I know what I would like to do,
which
but
is?
I don't try to look at myself, you know, like myself, how are you gonna look like, you know, 15 years older. That one thing is, you know, you're gonna be older. You're gonna be older, that's for sure.
Wiser.
You're gonna have less. I don't know, but anyway, you're gonna be older. No, I don't project. Certainly, I will be doing something completely different from what I'm doing. I'll be doing today. That's for sure.
You're an adventurer and innovative. My last question: how do you foresee Lebanon? And the last word to the Lebanese audience.
You know, I think Lebanon is very difficult to predict. We know that, and it has always been difficult to predict through the ages. I mean, if you look at the history of Lebanon, it was very difficult to predict, you know, the future, because so many things happen in the country, which has been a crossroad of culture, influence. But one thing I'm sure about is the fact that the country is very resilient, very resilient. So no matter what falls on the country will always be able to overcome the obstacles. And second, Lebanon will always be more a country of individuals than a country of communities. That means the individuals in Lebanon are usually very resilient, very strong. Most of them are entrepreneurs, are people who are ready to undertake whatever they need to undertake. So I'm seeing Lebanon still as a country with a lot of strong individuals. Continue a lot of interaction with the rest of the world. Extremely resilient, no matter what are the problem that it would be facing. You know, I think the development of Lebanon will have one consequence. It will keep the human resources of Lebanon in the country, and the non-development of Lebanon will just lead the human resources to leave the country. But somehow they're always going to be connected with Lebanon.
Mr. Carlos Ghosn, thank you very much for your interesting interview, and hope to see you very soon in Lebanon.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
اليوم بحلقتنا الخاصة بكارلوس غصن، هالرجل العظيم اللي شهرته صارت عالمية واللي بنى امبراطورية اسمها نيسان. فينا نكتشف انه الطموح ما له حدود، وهيك اسم لبنان واسم اللبنانية مثل كارلوس غصن انحفروا بالتاريخ.
souhaitez revoir cette émission et pour plus d'infos, visitez notre site internet www.mtv.com.lb.